I never imagined that the child I carried for 9 months would one day look at me and say I was a burden. The word didn't come all at once. It slipped out of his mouth like it had been waiting there for years. I was 68 when he finally said it. We were standing in the kitchen of the house I had lived in for more than 3 decades. The same house where I taught him to walk. The same house where I sat awake at night when he had fevers. The same house where I stretched every dollar after his father passed away. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words were calm, calculated, almost rehearsed. Mom, you don't really contribute anymore. This house is expensive. You forget things. You're slowing us down. Us. That word hurt even more. Because somehow I was no longer included in the family I built. I remember gripping the edge of the counter because my knees felt weak. I remember thinking maybe this was what old age was supposed to feel like. Maybe I really had become invisible. After my husband died 20 years earlier, everything had changed. I worked 2 jobs to keep that house. I skipped vacations. I wore the same coat for 10 winters. Because stability mattered more than comfort. When my son married, I welcomed them in. I cooked. I cleaned. I watched their children so they could build careers. I told myself this is what family does. But something shifted quietly. Little comments. Little looks. Little exclusions. They stopped asking my opinion. They stopped telling me plans. Then one day I realized I was eating dinner alone in my own home. The first time my son suggested I move to a smaller place, I laughed. I thought he was joking. He didn't laugh back. Mom, it's just practical. You don't need all this space. We do. That night I cried in my bedroom like I hadn't cried since my husband's funeral. Not because of the house, but because of the realization that my place in my own family was being slowly erased. Weeks later came the word burden, followed by something worse. He said maybe we should look into paperwork. Power of attorney. Just in case. Just in case. Those words rang in my ears for days. I knew what that meant. I had seen stories on the news. Elderly parents signed away rights without understanding. Homes transferred. Decisions made without consent. I may have been old, but I was not confused. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I went into the basement and opened the old metal filing cabinet. The one my husband insisted we keep organized. Inside were folders yellowed with time. Mortgage papers. Tax records. Insurance documents. And then I found it. The deed. My name. And my husband's. Only our names. No amendment. No transfer. No changes. My heart started pounding, not with fear but with clarity. I realized something that night. I was not powerless. I had simply been quiet. The next morning I watched my son pour coffee at the same counter where he had called me a burden. And I understood something deeply. Love does not give anyone the right to erase you. Age does not make you disposable. And silence can be mistaken for weakness. That was the day I decided I would take back what was mine. I didn't tell anyone what I had found. Not my son. Not my daughter-in-law. Not even my closest friend. I needed time. Time to think. Time to remember who I was before I let myself shrink to fit into someone else's comfort. That afternoon, I walked to the public library. I had not been there in years. The young woman at the desk smiled slowly like people do when they see someone old and assume they are lost. I asked for help finding information about property rights for seniors. Her smile changed. She leaned closer. And she listened. For the first time in months, someone spoke to me like I mattered. I learned words that day I had never needed before. Tenancy. Ownership. Elder protection. Undue influence. Each word felt like a light turning on inside a dark room. A week later I sat across from a legal aid attorney. My hands shook as I slid the deed across the table. He adjusted his glasses. Read carefully. Then looked up at me. This is your house. No one can force you out. I didn't cry. I breathed. He asked if anyone had pressured me to sign documents. I said not yet. But they were trying. He nodded slowly, as if he had heard this story too many times before. He explained how often adult children cross lines believing age equals authority. How easily love is confused with control. I walked home with a folder under my arm. It felt heavier than paper. It felt like dignity. At dinner that night, my son announced they were thinking of renovating, opening walls, changing rooms. I asked calmly who would be paying. He hesitated, then said it would make sense if the house was eventually theirs anyway. That was the moment. I placed my fork down, looked directly at him, and said, "This house is mine." The room went silent. My daughter-in-law laughed awkwardly. My son frowned. "Mom, don't be dramatic. We're family. Family does not erase ownership. Family does not pressure. Family does not plan futures without consent." The next day, I received an email. Papers attached. A request to sign something they called a formality. I printed it, read every word, and felt cold. It was a transfer of interest. I did not confront them. I did not argue. I took the papers back to the attorney. He did not look surprised. "We can stop this. But you need to act." That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in months. Because fear thrives in confusion. And clarity had returned. I stopped cooking dinner. I stopped babysitting. I stopped shrinking. When they noticed the change, they called it attitude. I called it boundaries. A week later, I sent a letter. Formal, clear, respectful. It stated that I was the sole owner, that no changes would be made without my approval, that I would be consulting counsel regarding future matters. My son did not speak to me for 3 days. On the 4th day, he knocked on my bedroom door. His voice was softer, almost uncertain. "Mom, why are you doing this?" I looked at him, really looked, and saw not a child, but a man who had mistaken silence for surrender. "I am doing this because I am still here, because I still matter, because what is mine does not become yours just because I am older." He didn't respond. He walked away. That night I stared at the ceiling and wondered when strength had become something we are expected to apologize for. But I knew this was only the beginning. The hardest part was still coming. When you are ready, write continue. And I will take the story deeper. Into the confrontation, the legal turning point, and the moment everything changed. The silence in the house grew heavy. Not loud, not angry, just thick. It followed me from room to room, sat beside me when I watched television, crept into my sleep. My son stopped making eye contact. My daughter-in-law avoided me completely. They spoke in low voices when they thought I couldn't hear. But I heard everything. I heard plans. I heard frustration. I heard resentment. One evening I overheard my name followed by the words, "She is getting difficult." Difficult. After decades of being agreeable, of stepping aside, of putting everyone else first. Standing up for myself had turned me into a problem. A few days later they sat me down at the dining table. The same table where I once helped my son with homework. Where I celebrated birthdays. Where I prayed for strength after my husband died. My son spoke carefully, like someone addressing a stranger. "Mom, we think you're under a lot of stress. Maybe it's time we look into options. Assisted living. Professional care." I felt my chest tighten, not because of fear, but because of anger so controlled it felt calm. I asked him if he thought I was incapable. He hesitated. "We just want what's best for you. What's best for me? Or what's convenient for you?" They had already looked at places. They had brochures, pamphlets, price sheets. They had planned my exit like a renovation. That night I called the attorney again. He listened quietly, then said something that changed everything. "If they are attempting to remove you without consent, that is elder coercion." Those words echoed in my mind. Elder coercion. There was a legal path forward, but it would mean doing something I never imagined. Serving my own son with a formal notice. The paper shook in my hands when I first read it. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. This was no longer just emotional. It was legal. I waited 2 days, then placed the envelope on the kitchen counter. When my son found it, his face changed. Not anger. Shock. "You got a lawyer?" I nodded. Why would you do this to your own family? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I did this because you tried to erase me. He accused me of betrayal, of mistrust, of overreacting. I listened, quietly, the way I had listened for years. Then I said something I had never said before. You don't get to decide when my life becomes inconvenient. The words hung in the air. That night they packed bags. They left the house. For the first time in years I was alone. Truly alone. In my own home. And instead of fear, I felt peace. In the weeks that followed, everything moved quickly. The attorney filed documents. Boundaries were established. Ownership reaffirmed. A court date was scheduled. I walked into that courtroom with my head high. 68 years old. Hands steady. Voice clear. The judge listened. Asked questions. Reviewed paperwork. Then looked directly at my son. This property belongs to your mother. She has full capacity. And full rights. The gavel came down. It was over. Outside the courthouse my son stood silent. His shoulders heavy. I didn't feel victory. I felt sadness. Because winning should never mean losing your child. Months have passed since then. We speak occasionally. Carefully. Slowly. The house is quiet. But it is mine. I garden again. I read. I sit on the porch in the evenings and breathe. I am not a burden. I am a woman who survived love, loss, and the courage it takes to choose yourself. And if there is one thing I know now, it is this. Age does not take away your worth. Silence does. And I will never be silent again. People ask me now if I regret it. If I wish I had stayed quiet. If keeping peace would have been easier. Sometimes, in the soft hours before sunrise, I do miss the sound of my grandchildren running through the hall. I miss the idea of family the way it used to be. But then I remember how small I felt. How I started apologizing for taking up space. For breathing too loudly. For existing. Peace that costs your dignity is not peace. After the court decision, letters came. From people I had not heard from in years. Neighbors. Old co-workers. Women my age who whispered their own stories. One said her daughter took her bank card. Another said her sons moved her furniture out while she was in rehab. Another cried on the phone and said I thought I was the only one. That is when I realized how common this really was. Older women are taught to endure, to sacrifice, to stay grateful, to stay quiet. We are praised for patience, even when patience is slowly destroying us. I started volunteering at a local senior center, just twice a week. Sitting in a small room with bad lighting and strong coffee. I told my story out loud for the first time. My voice trembled. Then steadied women nodded. Some cried. Some stared at the floor like they were seeing their own lives reflected back at them. One woman held my hand and said I thought I was crazy for feeling this way. You are not crazy. You are aware. My son eventually came by one afternoon. Months later. Alone. He stood on the porch. Hands in his pockets. Older somehow. He didn't ask to come in. He didn't need to. He said I didn't realize how far we had gone. I listened. He said I thought I was doing what everyone does. I asked him who everyone was. He didn't answer. I told him something gently. Something I wish someone had told him sooner. Love does not mean ownership. Help does not mean control. He nodded. Tears in his eyes. And for the first time I saw accountability, not anger. We are not healed. But we are honest. And honesty is a beginning. Now when I wake up in the house I paid for. The house I protected. I no longer feel afraid of growing older. Because strength does not disappear with age. It sharpens. I move slower. But I see clearer. I know my rights. I know my worth. And I know that my voice still carries weight. If you are listening to this, and you feel yourself shrinking, please hear me. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not finished. Stand up. Even if your legs shake. Speak. Even if your voice cracks. What is yours is still yours. And taking it back is not selfish. It is survival as time went on. Something else changed. The way I saw myself. For years I had measured my value by how useful I was to others. How much I gave. How little I asked. When that was taken away, I thought I had nothing left. I was wrong. I discovered a quiet strength. The kind that does not shout. The kind that does not need permission. I learned how to lock my own doors at night. Not just the ones on the house, but the ones around my heart. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped justifying my choices. I stopped apologizing for choosing safety over approval. Some people never came back. Some relationships never healed. And I let that be. Because not every loss is a tragedy. Some losses are a release. Now when I sit by the window in the evenings, watching the light fade from the walls I once feared losing, I feel something close to gratitude. Not for the pain, but for the awakening. I am 68. I have lines on my hands, memories in every room, and a future that still belongs to me. And if my story reaches even one person, one mother, one grandmother, one woman who has been made to feel small, then it was worth telling. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect what is yours. Even now. Especially now. Because your life does not end when someone decides you are inconvenient. Sometimes, that is exactly when it begins. In the months that followed, I began to notice how differently the world treated me when I carried myself with certainty. People listened longer. Asked before assuming. Paused instead of pushing. Nothing about my age had changed. Only my posture. Only my refusal to disappear. I learned that confidence at this stage of life is quiet. It does not need approval. It does not seek permission. It simply exists. Some evenings I walk through the house and touch the walls. Not out of fear, but out of remembrance. This room where I held my husband's hand when we talked about growing old together. This corner where my son took his first steps. This window where I watched seasons pass and told myself to keep going. I did keep going. There are days when loneliness still visits. It sits beside me without warning. But it no longer frightens me. Because loneliness is lighter than humiliation. And solitude is kinder than being erased. I started writing things down. Not for anyone else. Just for myself. Memories, truths. Warnings I wish someone had given me earlier. Never sign what you do not understand. Never mistake love for obligation. Never believe age makes you less deserving of respect. Sometimes I read those words back to myself. Like a promise. I am not angry anymore. Anger burns fast. Clarity lasts. I understand now that my son did not wake up one day and decide to hurt me. He followed a world that teaches people to take before they listen. To claim before they ask. That does not excuse it. But it explains it. And understanding gave me peace. I no longer wait for apologies to heal me. I no longer need approval to feel whole. I have my mornings. My quiet coffee. My small routines that remind me I am still here. And that is enough. If you are listening and you feel afraid of standing up because you might lose someone, remember this. Anyone who only loves you when you are silent does not love you. Your voice matters. Your presence matters. Your life still has weight. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. Because I am living proof that even at 68, even when your own child turns away, you can choose yourself. And that choice changes everything. I used to believe that endings were loud, that they came with slammed doors and final words. I was wrong. Some endings are quiet. They arrive in the moment you stop begging to be understood. In the moment you stop hoping someone will change. That is when a new beginning quietly takes its place. I no longer count the years behind me. I count the mornings I wake up without fear. The nights I sleep knowing no one is planning my life without my consent. There is a kind of freedom that comes when you realize you do not owe your silence to anyone. I have learned to trust myself again. My instincts. My memory. My judgment. They tried to tell me I was confused. That I was emotional. That I didn't understand. But I did understand. I understood exactly what was happening. and trusting that understanding saved me. Sometimes younger women ask me how to avoid what I went through. I tell them this: keep your name on what you pay for. Keep copies of everything. And never believe that love requires you to disappear. I wish I had known that sooner. But knowing it now is still a gift. The house still creaks at night, just like it always did. But it no longer feels like it is waiting for me to leave. It feels like it is holding me. I sit in my favorite chair, the one they once said took up too much space. And I smile, because space is exactly what I deserve. If my story sounds familiar, if you hear your own life in my words, please remember, you are not weak for wanting dignity. You are not difficult for setting boundaries. You are not selfish for protecting what is yours. You are brave. And bravery does not belong to the young. It belongs to the aware. I was aware too late to avoid the pain, but not too late to reclaim my life. And that is why I tell this story. Not to shame, not to accuse, but to remind you that it is never too late to take back what was always yours. When I look back now, I see how close I came to disappearing. Not physically, but quietly, piece by piece. It happens slowly, so slowly you do not notice. One decision made without you, one opinion dismissed, one signature almost taken. That is how dignity is stolen. Not in one moment, but in many small ones. I think about the woman I was before all this. The one who believed love meant endurance. The one who believed patience would eventually be rewarded. I forgive her. She did what she thought was right with what she knew then. But I am not her anymore. Now I speak even when my voice shakes. Now I ask questions. Now I read every page twice. People sometimes mistake this for hardness. But it is not. It is wisdom earned the hard way. I have learned that aging is not losing yourself. It is shedding illusions. You stop pretending. You stop tolerating. You stop waiting. And in that stopping, you finally arrive. There are mornings when sunlight fills the kitchen. The same kitchen where I once felt unwanted. And I make my tea slowly. No one rushes me. No one sighs. No one watches the clock. Time belongs to me again. I think that is what frightened them the most. Not my age, but my awakening. Because a woman who knows her worth cannot be managed. If my son ever truly hears me one day, this is what I would want him to understand. I did not fight you. I fought disappearance. I did not choose papers over people.
I chose survival over silence.
And I would do it again. Because I am still here. Still thinking. Still deciding. And that is not a burden. That is a life. If you are listening to this at night, in a quiet room, wondering if it is too late, let me tell you this. As long as you are breathing, it is not too late. Not to speak. Not to protect. Not to choose yourself. Your story is still unfolding. And you deserve to be present in every chapter. The days turn into weeks and the weeks into months. But the lessons I have learned stay with me constantly. I notice small things now. A smile from a neighbor. The way the wind shifts through the trees outside my window. The quiet confidence in my own step down the hallway. These little things remind me that life still moves forward. And that even in solitude there is strength. Sometimes I think about my son. Not with anger anymore, but with a careful understanding of human weakness. I see the mistakes he made. The assumptions, the entitlement, the way he believed that love could be measured by convenience. I mourn what was lost, but I do not regret standing my ground, because giving in would have erased me. And I have finally learned that nothing is more precious than being fully seen and fully acknowledged. I talk to friends about the changes I have made, about the courage it took to face family, about the legal steps that protected me. And they listen. They nod. They see the woman I have become. I tell them it is never too late to reclaim your life. That age does not diminish power. That experience is not a weakness but an advantage. The house is quiet again, but in a different way. Not empty, not tense, but filled with the presence of someone who refuses to be overlooked. I have returned to the simple pleasures. gardening in the mornings, reading letters from friends, watching the sun rise and set, knowing that I chose this life, and that it is mine. No one can take it from me. Not words, not threats, not misguided intentions. I have learned that courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is simply refusing to vanish. And in refusing, I have discovered freedom. I have discovered peace. I have discovered myself. If you are listening to this, if you have felt invisible, if you have been made to believe your presence is a burden, please know this. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. Stand. Speak. Protect. And take back what is yours. Because your life is still yours. And claiming it is the bravest thing you will ever do. I have learned to move through the world differently now. With patience, not for others, but for myself. With clarity instead of confusion. With quiet determination rather than fear. There are moments when memories of the past still sting. Words said in anger. Decisions made without asking. The way I once doubted myself. But those moments no longer control me. They remind me. They teach me. They strengthen me. I have begun to reach out to other women. Older women who feel invisible in their own homes. Women whose children speak over them or decide for them. Women who are quietly losing their place in the lives they built. I tell them to check the papers. To understand the laws. To remember that knowledge is power. And that speaking up is not betrayal. I tell them that boundaries are not cruelty. That standing firm is not selfishness. That reclaiming your life is not rebellion. Some listen. Some hesitate. But even hesitation is a start. I see now that life is measured not by how long we live, but by how fully we remain ourselves. By how much courage we muster when the world expects us to shrink. The house is still mine. I walk its rooms freely. I open drawers and closets. I sit in the chair that was once contested. And I remember every step it took to get here. I do not need their approval. I do not need their understanding. I only need to honor the woman I have become. And that woman refuses to be silenced. Refuses to be erased. Refuses to be small. Every day I wake knowing I have fought for myself. And every day I am grateful I did. Because the world may try to tell you your age is a limit. But age is only a number. Not a sentence. And a life reclaimed is a life fully lived. If my story reaches even one person, if it gives courage to even one woman, then every moment of struggle, every tear shed, every fear faced, was worth it. I am here. I am strong. I am whole. And I will never stop being so. Over time I began to notice subtle changes in my home. The air felt lighter. The rooms no longer heavy with tension. The walls seemed to breathe with me. I began to fill the house with small joys. Fresh flowers on the windowsill. Books stacked carefully on the table. Photographs of memories I chose to cherish. I realized that taking back what was mine was not just about the house. It was about reclaiming my space in the world. My right to be heard. My right to exist fully without apology. Sometimes my son comes by. We speak cautiously, carefully choosing words. But there is a difference now. He listens. Even if he doesn't fully understand. Even if he cannot undo the past. And I have learned that is enough. I do not need complete reconciliation. I only need respect. And that I finally have. I wake up each morning feeling the weight of my own presence. A presence that was once questioned. Once dismissed. Once considered a burden. But now it is undeniable. I am here. I have rights. I have a voice. I have a life that is truly mine. I no longer shrink. I do not apologize for my choices. I do not fear being judged for defending myself. Instead, I walk with quiet confidence. With gratitude for the lessons I have learned. With clarity about who I am and what I deserve. The world may try to tell us that age is weakness. That silence is safety. That compliance is love. But I know better now. I know that strength can bloom at any age. That speaking your truth is survival. And that protecting yourself is courage. I have discovered that freedom is not just a legal matter. It is an emotional one. It is the right to wake up in your own home, to make your own decisions, to stand tall even when those around you try to diminish you. And in this freedom, I have found peace. I have found dignity. I have found myself. If you are listening to this, and you have ever been made to feel small, remember this. Your life is yours. Your voice matters. Your presence is valuable. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise. Stand up. Claim your space. Take back what is always yours. Because like me, you are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. You are alive. You are whole. And it is never too late to choose yourself. I began to notice how differently I carried myself in public. There was no arrogance. No need to prove. Just a calm certainty that I belonged. People noticed. Sometimes they smiled. Sometimes they paused. Sometimes they asked if I was okay. I was more than okay. I was awake. I was aware. I was living intentionally for the first time in decades. I started spending more time with friends my age. Women who had been silenced for too long. Women who had given and given until they felt empty. We shared stories. We laughed. We cried. We supported one another. And in that circle, I felt the true meaning of family beyond blood. It became clear that my value was never in what I could provide for others. It was in who I was. In my presence. In my courage. In my refusal to vanish. Sometimes I look at my son, and I no longer feel resentment. I feel a quiet understanding that he too is learning the lessons I had to fight for. I understand now that many people do not see clearly until life forces them to. That love is complicated, and that mistakes are inevitable. But mistakes do not justify taking someone's dignity. And lessons learned too late are still lessons worth learning. I spend my mornings in the garden, feeling the sun on my face, listening to the birds, feeling the soil beneath my fingers. And I am grateful for every moment of freedom. The house no longer feels like a battlefield. It feels like a sanctuary, a place where I can breathe, think, decide, and simply be. I write letters to myself sometimes, reminding me of what I have learned, reminding me of the courage it took to say no, to stand firm, to reclaim what was always mine. And when I read those letters, I feel proud, not of conflict won, but of life reclaimed. I have learned that strength is quiet, resilience is patient, and courage is persistent. And the most powerful lesson of all is that reclaiming your life is never selfish. It is survival. It is recognition of your worth. And it is the truest form of love for yourself. If you are listening, if you have been dismissed, if you have been told you are a burden, remember this. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. Stand. Speak. Protect. Choose. And take back your life. Because it has always been yours. The next morning felt different. The sunlight came through the windows soft and forgiving. And for the first time in months, I felt lighter. I went through the house slowly touching familiar surfaces. Not to claim. Not to prove. But simply to remind myself that I was still here. That this was mine. That my life was mine. I prepared a small breakfast. Just tea and toast. And sat at the table thinking about what had happened. Thinking about the battles I had fought quietly. And the courage it had taken to face my own family. It was not easy. It was not comfortable. But it was necessary. Weeks later I received notice that my son wanted to meet. He said he wanted to talk about the house and our relationship. I agreed cautiously. We sat together. Not in anger but in tension. Words carefully measured. Each sentence holding more history than it appeared. I listened first. He spoke hesitantly. Trying to justify. Trying to explain. Trying to make peace without truly seeing what had been done. I told him calmly. I am not here to fight. I am here to protect my life. My home. My dignity. He looked at me with a mixture of shame and confusion. He tried to speak. But I held up my hand. And said, listen first. Understand first. Then respond. For the first time he heard me. really heard me. Not just the voice he wanted to hear. Not just the voice that agreed with him. But my voice. Steady. Firm. Unafraid. We spoke for hours. Sometimes in silence. Sometimes in tears. Sometimes in laughter at memories long forgotten. He apologized. Not for what he had felt. But for what he had done. For underestimating me. For trying to erase me. For forgetting that love does not demand submission. I accepted his apology. Not fully. Because trust must be rebuilt. But I acknowledged it. Because I had forgiven myself first. From that day forward, boundaries were respected. Decisions were made with my knowledge. My home became a place of peace again. Not because others changed entirely. But because I refused to be diminished. I returned to my routines. Gardening. Reading. Writing. And spending time with women who shared their stories. Finding strength in shared experience. And realizing I was never truly alone. Every morning I wake knowing I fought for myself. Every evening I sleep knowing I belong. And every day I remind myself that age does not make you less. Silence does not make you safe. And courage has no expiration. I learned that the most important fight is often within. The fight to remember your worth. To reclaim your life. To say no when everyone expects yes. And I am here. Older. Wiser. Stronger. And finally free. If you are listening to this. And have been silenced. And have been told you are a burden. Know this. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. Stand up. Claim your space. Protect your life. Speak your truth. Because like me, it is never too late to take back what is always yours. Months passed and life settled into a quiet rhythm. The tension that had once filled the rooms lifted slowly like morning fog. I moved through the house with ease. Touching the counters, the walls, the windows, as if to remind myself that I belonged. I began to reconnect with my neighbors and friends. Women who had quietly endured similar betrayals. We shared stories. We shared laughter. We shared tears. And in doing so we found strength together. Sometimes my son visits. Not as often as I wish. And not always comfortably. But he comes. And we speak. Carefully. Honestly. Without pretense. He has begun to understand. Though he will never undo the hurt. He listens now. He asks questions. He seeks guidance instead of dictating. I watch him and feel a mix of sorrow and hope. Sorrow for the lessons learned too late. Hope that he can carry them forward without repeating the mistakes. I spend my days tending my garden. Planting flowers. Watching them bloom. Finding peace in small victories. In the ordinary acts that remind me I am alive. I am present. I am free. I write letters to myself. Sometimes reading them aloud. Reminding myself of the woman I fought to become. The woman who refused to disappear. The woman who reclaimed her life. Every day I remind myself that courage is not always loud. It is quiet, persistent, and deeply rooted. I have learned that reclaiming your life is not selfish. It is necessary. It is survival. It is the truest form of self-love. I tell this story not to cast blame, not to shame, but to illuminate. To remind women everywhere that their voices matter, their lives matter, their presence matters. If you have been told you are a burden, if you have been made to feel small, if you have been pressured to disappear, stand, speak, protect, take back your life. Because life does not end when others decide you are inconvenient. Life begins the moment you decide to claim it. I am living proof that it is never too late to choose yourself, to honor yourself, and to take back what was always yours. And now as I sit in my home in the quiet evenings, with the sun setting softly outside, I feel a peace I have never known, a freedom I once thought impossible, and a certainty that I will never again let anyone convince me that I do not deserve my life. There are still quiet moments when memories of the past visit me, words spoken in anger, moments when I doubted myself, times I almost believed I was a burden. But those moments no longer have power over me. They serve as reminders, not as chains. I have learned to carry my history with grace, to honor the pain, and to celebrate the strength it gave me. I reach out now to women who feel invisible, who have been silenced by those they love, who fear speaking up because they might be accused of being difficult. I tell them what I wish I had known sooner, that it is never too late to reclaim your life, that courage does not fade with age, and that knowledge is your strongest ally. We meet in small rooms, over tea and soft light, sharing stories, offering comfort, offering wisdom. We laugh at memories, cry over losses, and leave with a renewed sense of purpose. Each woman carrying a spark of courage back into her own home. The house remains my sanctuary, every corner filled with the life I chose to protect. The kitchen where I once faced betrayal, now a place of calm. The garden a reminder of growth and renewal. I wake each morning grateful for my presence, for the clarity that guided me, for the choices I made, and for the life I continue to build. I have learned that family does not always understand, that love does not always protect, and that sometimes the strongest act of love is protecting yourself. I no longer fear the future. I no longer doubt my worth, and I no longer allow anyone to diminish me. If my story reaches even one woman, even one person who has been made to feel small, then the struggle was worth it. Because reclaiming your life, claiming your voice, protecting your space, is not selfish. It is survival. It is courage. It is dignity. And I have lived it. And I continue to live it. Every single day. So to anyone listening now, know this. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. Stand. Speak. Protect. Take back your life. Because your story is still yours to tell. And it is never too late to begin again. Have come to understand that life after reclaiming yourself is not always dramatic. It is quiet, steady, filled with small victories that accumulate into something powerful. I take walks in the neighborhood, greet neighbors with a smile, notice the changing seasons, feel the sunlight and the wind. And each day I am reminded that I am alive, truly alive. I have started journaling my thoughts, writing not for anyone else, but to capture the clarity I have gained, to remind myself of the courage it took, to stand firm when the world expected me to shrink. Sometimes I think about my son, about the boy he once was, the man he is becoming. I do not harbor anger anymore, only hope that he has learned that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned, and that love does not justify control. I spend time with friends, sharing stories and advice, helping them recognize their own strength, finding solidarity in shared experience, and realizing that community can be a powerful source of resilience. The house is no longer a battleground. It is a home, a sanctuary, a place where I make my own rules, and I honor the life that I fought to keep. I have learned that strength is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet, persistent, resilient. I have learned that courage does not fade with age, that dignity is not given, it is claimed, and that reclaiming your life is the most profound form of love. If you are listening, if you have been made to feel small, if you have been told your presence is inconvenient, remember this. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. Stand up. Speak your truth. Protect your life. Take back what is always yours, because your story is still unfolding, and it is never too late to claim it. I live each day with this knowledge, with this quiet strength, and with the certainty that no one can take away what I have reclaimed. And that certainty, that knowledge, that peace, is worth every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt. I am here. I am strong. I am free. And I will never again allow anyone to convince me otherwise. As the months turned into years, I noticed a change not just in my home but in myself. A calm confidence that had been buried for decades now walked beside me quietly. I carried myself differently, spoke differently, and even moved differently. I no longer waited for permission. I no longer asked for approval. I no longer doubted my right to exist fully and openly. People noticed the change. Some admired it. Some were confused by it. But I did not need their understanding. I only needed to honor myself. I began mentoring younger women, sharing my story, helping them recognize the signs of being diminished, encouraging them to protect their rights, to trust their instincts, and to reclaim their lives if needed. I realized that my struggle had a purpose beyond myself, that the lessons I learned could light a path for others, and that my voice could be a shield as well as a beacon. I still think about my son, about the family I almost lost, and I feel a mixture of sorrow and gratitude. Sorrow for the pain that could have been avoided, gratitude for the awakening that came too late to prevent it. The house remains mine, every corner filled with memories I cherish, every room a testament to the life I refuse to surrender, the garden a living symbol of growth and resilience. I wake each morning grateful for my home, for my body, for my mind, and for the courage that has carried me through. I have learned that survival is not just about enduring. It is about choosing. Choosing to protect yourself. Choosing to speak. Choosing to stand. If my story reaches even one person, even one woman who feels invisible, even one person who has been made to feel small, then every struggle I endured has meaning. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. Stand up. Speak. Protect. Take back your life. Because life is yours. And claiming it is the bravest act you can ever perform. I live with this knowledge now. And every day I am reminded that courage does not fade, that dignity does not expire, and that it is never too late to be seen, to be heard, and to be fully alive. Sometimes I sit quietly in the evenings, watching the sun fade behind the trees outside my window, and I reflect on how far I have come. I think about the fear I once carried, the weight of being dismissed, the quiet ache of being underestimated by those I loved. And I realize now that those moments taught me something essential. That true strength is not measured by how much you endure, but by how fiercely you reclaim yourself. I no longer shrink when others speak. I no longer hesitate to assert my needs. I no longer allow anyone to make me feel small. I have learned to celebrate my own company, to find joy in simple routines, to savor the life that is wholly mine. I have reconnected with old friends, women who understand the struggle, who know the cost of silence, and together we share stories that empower us, that remind us we are not alone. Occasionally, my son visits, and we talk, carefully, with respect, sometimes awkwardly, but always honestly. I see him learning, slowly, that love is not control, that family is not ownership, that respect is earned by honoring one another. The house stands as a symbol of my victory, not over them, but over the fear and doubt that once threatened to erase me. Every wall a reminder of the courage it took to speak up, every room a testament to resilience and determination. I have learned that reclaiming your life is not about conflict. It is about clarity, about boundaries, about refusing to disappear. And I want every woman who hears my story to know that it is never too late to stand for yourself, to protect your rights, to assert your voice. You are not a burden. You are not invisible. You are not powerless. Stand. Speak. Protect. Take back your life. Because life is precious, and you deserve to live it fully, with strength, with dignity, and with the freedom to be truly yourself. I am living proof that even at 68, even when those you love try to diminish you, you can reclaim your life. And in doing so, you discover a freedom that cannot be taken away.